Hey y'all, Jared Hoffman here. Latest edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. Appreciate everyone who is tuning in or will be tuning in soon. Got it's a lot of light. Turn off the lights. Anyway, if you can leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel. Please subscribe to become a level 1 or 2 member to get the exclusive content from the HBCU Sports team. Follow us on all of our social platforms. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Blue Sky, we're on LinkedIn, we're on I don't know, name a social media app. We're on it. Search up HBCU Sports and you'll find us there. And you can always go to hbcusports.com for all the latest news at HBCU Sports. All right. So this is a eventful week. This is a very eventful week in HBCU athletics. We have the HBCU Legacy Bowl coming up this weekend. We just had the CIAA Indoor Track and Field Championships. We'll talk about why that was such a historic event in a second. And this is the last week of regular season basketball in the CIAA. So we are on the countdown to the CIAA tournament. And yes, you can see by the title of this episode, Morehouse has announced that they have hired a football coach. Took them 2 full months, but they finally found their guy. We will talk about that. But first, let's talk about the historic event, which was the CIAA Indoor Track and Field Championships. Virginia Union wins the men's side of the indoor track and field championships. This marks their first track and field championship of any kind in nearly a century. 92 years, I want to say, what was the last time that they won a track and field championship. And they won it in pretty much a landslide. They got 164 total points over Claflin, who had been the 3-time reigning defending champions before this year. They finished in second place. Claflin did with 123 points. Virginia Union basically got it done in an overall effort. They finished in the top 8. They made it to the finals in pretty much every track event, which is the 60 meters, 100, 200 meters, 400 meters, 800 meters, so on and so forth. And I believe they had somebody in the top 8 or top 10 in every field event as well. So I think they scored points in pretty much every single event. Their best event was the shot put. They had, let me go to that real quick. They got the winner, Zachary Jones, and then the second place finisher, Daquan Boone. And they also had the 4th place finisher, Trevion Hooker. And then rounding out the field was Timothy Butler, who finished in 7th place. So that's 25 of their 164 points coming from shot put. They also did pretty well. I want to say it was either triple jump or high jump. It was high jump. They had the 1st and 3rd place finisher. Carson Calhoun finished in 1st place in that one, 2.03 over Jameer Leggett from Johnson C. Smith, who had 1.98. Also had 1.98 is LaShawn Speller from Virginia Union. So that's 16 points there. And then an additional 2 from Gregory Taylor, who finished in 7th. So historic achievement for Virginia Union to win their first track and field championship. I believe it was since, I don't remember the specific year, but I know it's been 90 plus years since which was the last time Virginia Union won a track and field championship. And it's been in the making. Last year they finished 2nd place in indoor and the outdoor CIAA championships. So this was a long time coming for Virginia Union. So congratulations to them. And we'll see if they field any selections to the indoor track and field championships, the national championships. I believe that's supposed to be taking place sometime. I know it's taking place. I think it's March 11th to the 13th is when the Division II national championships happen. As far as I've seen, I don't believe anyone has met the standard for the national championships, but I haven't looked at every single event. I know that they haven't met the standard in any other sprinting events or any other distance events. So we'll see if they can get somebody from the field events. Potentially, they had 3 guys that finished in the top 4 in shot put. So I'm assuming one of those guys could, field a selection in the national championships there. But we'll see. And also, we had Fayetteville State claiming their sixth straight uh, indoor track and field championships. They have stepped into the spot of St. Aug, of that track and field dynasty. We know them as an incredible cross country program. I believe they won the last 7 cross country championships, and that was a big part of why they won this track and field championship, was their dominance in the distance events. They got the winner in the 800, in the 1500, and in the what's the last one? 800, the miles, excuse me, and 3,000. That's what I was confused. I said 1,500. They don't have a 1,500. They had the winner in the 800, the mile, and the 3,000, and they did very well in the distance events, which is why they got the win over. By the way, they got the win over Claflin once again, by a slim margin, 131 to 122 over Claflin. Claflin, this was a tale of two halves for in this track and field championship on the women's side. Claflin got all the winners in the sprinting events. The 60-meter winner came from Claflin. So did the 200 winner and the 400 winner. So it was Claflin in the sprinting events, and it was Fayetteville State in the distance events. The separator was in the field events. Fayetteville State had the winner in the high jump, and they also had the 4th and 5th place finisher in that event. They also had the 2nd place finisher in the long jump. They had they had someone place in triple jump. The same person, McKaylin Chambers, excuse me, who was the one who finished 2nd in long jump, and she finished 5th in triple jump. But the difference was Claflin, while they had the winner and the 3rd place finisher in triple jump, they just couldn't equal up to Fayetteville State's production in the field events, and that kind of kept them from being able to win it. If they had at least 1 or 2 people finish in the top 8, in the top 3 in a particular field event, they probably could have got it from Fayetteville State, but unfortunately they weren't able to get that done. Winston-Salem State also did pretty well as well. They finished with 112 points. Kind of an upset in the 60 meters. Brianna Benlaws, who was, I believe, the 100-meter champion, the 100 and 200-meter champion in the outdoor track and field championships last year. Brianna Benlaws, she had a very good preliminary round. Ran a 7.62 in the preliminaries of the 60 meters, the best time of any athlete at the championships in the preliminary round, but kind of fell off in the finals. Ran a worse time and wasn't able to get that championship under her belt. But she is decorated in the outdoor season. One in the 100 and the 200. So we're looking forward to seeing her compete in the outdoor season. But an incredible performance nonetheless by all these teams. Fayetteville State, Claflin, and Winston-Salem State, were neck and neck, but it was Fayetteville State who kept their streak alive, winning their 6th straight CIAA indoor track and field championships. And once again, they will be waiting to see if they will field any selections in the indoor track and field championships. We don't usually get athletes selected in the distance events for any track and field championships, really. So it would be a remarkable achievement if anybody from the 800, the mile, or the 3,000 were able to, make it into the indoor national championships. So yeah, we'll be on the lookout for that, and yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, let's get to the title of this episode. Not episode. This ain't a TV show. This edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. Morehouse makes a hire more than 2 months after they announced that they were moving on from Terrence Mathis. Morehouse has announced that they are hiring Brad Sherrod as their next head football coach. This is a guy that comes from has a wide range of experience. Most recently was the head coach at Texas Wesleyan University. I'm reading off of the Morehouse website because I didn't really do research as to who he was. Um, had a pretty good run there. Led them to a 10-1 record in the 2024 season and their first Sooner Athletic Conference championship. Uh, you can go to Morehouse Athletics if you want to read along. I'm basically reading verbatim what's on the screen because, like I said, I didn't have much time to do research into Brad Sherrod, and because I believe they announced this. Yeah, they announced this yesterday, so this was literally fresh news. But yeah, so 30 years of experience. Last was most recently with Texas Wesleyan, led them to the NAIA playoffs in the last 2 years. Uh, this is from what I can see, he has the pedigree. He absolutely has the pedigree, and it's a great hire given the circumstances. You have someone who has had postseason experience at any having bringing someone in at any level who has had postseason experience is always a plus. And not only that, but has had postseason experience as a head coach. This is someone who has been at the Power Five level. He coached at his alma mater, Duke. He has coached at the FCS level. Was recently at Tennessee State as a safeties coach. Once again, I'm reading his resume. He was at Sam Houston State, and this is when Sam Houston State was an FCS powerhouse. Well, not a powerhouse, but was a top program at the FCS level. They're now at the FBS, but nonetheless, this is someone who has had a wide range of experience, and it's more than what Morehouse deserves. It is I hope that they give him the time he needs to build this program up because I've said, and I said this numerous times. Morehouse was going in the right direction under Terrence Mathis. I completely did not. I had no idea why they felt the need to move on from him. But now you got your new guy. So it's a clean slate. Everything that happened last year is null and void. The progress that you made is null and void. Now you're starting on a new trajectory, and that'll be under Coach Sherrod. And if his tenure is anything like he had at Texas Wesleyan, then this should be a prosperous run. He's kind of behind the 8 ball. National Signing Day is well behind us, so any recruiting that he does from here will most likely be from the transfer portal in the next couple of weeks. When the portal reopens, I'm not sure when that happens. So I don't. He's up against it in his first season. This is like I said about Dawson Odom's last week. Who was hired to me way too late. If he wins 3 games like he did, like this team did last year, I would be pleasantly surprised. Given Morehouse's history, if they win 2 games, it's quite a surprise. And that has nothing to do with Brad Sherrod as a coach. And that has nothing to do with Dawson Odoms as a coach. But you can't give a coach such a short amount of time to build not only the staff that he wants, but build the team that he wants or that he needs. Build the staff that he needs and the team that he needs in order to win games. That takes time. That takes a full off season. Teams like Albany State, who knew that Quinn Gray was going to be gone, or maybe speculated that it was a possibility that he could be gone, they had time to put together a plan. And then there's teams that have their coach already, who have had a head start in putting together their teams during the offseason. Teams like Virginia Union, teams like Benedict, teams like Johnson C. Smith, so on and so forth, that have championship aspirations. So championship aspirations is not, it wasn't a realistic expectation for Morehouse anyway, but it cannot be for this season. It should be, building towards that. That's what Morehouse is doing now. What Brad Sherrod's job is in his first season is laying down the foundation, establishing what the expectation is for the players that come into the building and the coaches that come into the building. That's what his job is. I'd be pleasantly surprised if they won more than 2 games. If they won a game, it would be expected because that's what Morehouse has, come to expect. But if they win 2 games, then it's a start in the right direction. Because it's more than what we've seen them have in full off seasons. They have had full off seasons where they have finished winless or where they finished with 1 win. So to have such a short off season and be able to put up 2 wins, it shows not only how good of a coach Brad Sherrod is, but it shows that he will be here for a long time. And if they give him a chance, that it's only a matter of time before they're finishing with a winning record and potentially having a championship rose. Before they're raising that championship trophy. So Brad Sherrod, the new head coach of Morehouse. Let's read the quotes from these hires. So from Morehouse athletic director, he says, Coach Sherrod is a proven program builder with a track record of sustained success in postseason performance. More importantly, he understands what it means to develop young men with purpose. Morehouse football has always stood for excellence, discipline, and leadership. We believe Coach Sherrod is the right leader to carry the tradition forward. And then from Coach Sherrod, he says, I'm honored to join Morehouse College, and guiding this program is a responsibility that I do not take lightly. Our goal is to build a championship caliber program rooted in toughness, accountability, and brotherhood, while representing the college in the right way on and off the field. And of course, he thanks the president, AD, and for the opportunity. And yeah. So Coach Brad Sherrod will be the new head coach of Morehouse College, and we'll see what he can do in a short off season to get Morehouse to that championship standard that he has for them. All right, we are on the countdown to the 2026 CIAA men's and women's basketball tournament. This weekend will be the last in the regular season for the conferences before they make their respective trips to Baltimore for the men's and women's basketball tournament. As it stands currently in the men's standings in the CIAA North, there is a tie between Virginia Union and Virginia State. And the best way to settle that tie is to just face each other head to head. Both of those teams will be going at it this weekend for the CIAA North Division crown. And the winner will be obviously the division champion and the number 1 seed for the division in the CIAA tournament. So Bluefield State has the 3 seed wrapped up in the CIAA North. And in the South, Fayetteville State has the division championship locked up in CIAA South. So I think for right now, it would be settling 2 through 4. So right now, Claflin has the advantage over Shaw and Johnson C. Smith. They are both tied. Johnson C. Smith and Shaw are tied at 5-4, and Claflin is 6-3. So Claflin this weekend, they will go up against Johnson C. Smith, and a win for Johnson C. Smith could potentially put them in line for this 2 seed. Thought I heard a burp coming on. Nope. So right now, there it is. All right. Claflin has the head-to-head against Johnson C. Smith. They beat him earlier this season, 79-72. So how the tiebreakers work in the CIAA, they go by point differential in head-to-head matchups. So if they both split the head-to-head and they both have this identical division records, they would go by who has the better point differential right now. So as it stands, Claflin has a 7-point advantage over Johnson C. Smith. Now, if Claflin wins, all of this is null and void. The tiebreakers are null and void if Claflin wins. But if Claflin loses and Johnson C. Smith wins, and they beat Johnson C. Smith by more than 7 points, then the tiebreaker will go to Johnson C. Smith by virtue of them having the same division record. But if Shaw wins and Johnson C. Smith wins, no, if Shaw wins and Johnson C. Smith wins, no, yeah, if Johnson C. Smith, no matter what, no, wait, hold on. Yeah, because Shaw beat, so, okay, that's what I was looking for. Shaw lost to Claflin 80-79 earlier this season, but in the very next game they had against them, they beat them 81-79. So the point differential tiebreaker will go to, so basically Claflin could potentially fall from 2-4 at the end of this weekend if they lose to Johnson C. Smith by more than 7 points. Now, if they lose to Johnson C. Smith by less than 7 points, then of course everything will remain the same. And well, not everything will remain the same. If Claflin loses no matter what, and Shaw wins, Shaw's the 2 seed, and Claflin will drop to the 3 if they lose by less than 7 points. But if they lose by more than 7 points, then they will drop to the 4 seed. Johnson C. Smith will move up to, well, I think then it would depend on Johnson C. Smith and Shaw. So Johnson C. Smith and Shaw beat them most recently 80-76, and in their second matchup they lost 77-90. So yeah, the tiebreaker would go to Johnson C. Smith in that situation. So Johnson C. Smith beats Claflin by more than 7 points, then they will move up into the 2 seed. It'll be Shaw in the 3 seed, and then Claflin in the 4 seed. But if Claflin wins, that's null and void. They're the 2 seed, and so on and so forth. Hope y'all got all that. That was a whole bunch of rambling that I just did. But so basically, there's a lot to decide in terms of the 2-4 seed in the South, because the division championship is all already wrapped up, and we still got to decide who the CIAA North Division champion is going to be after this weekend. Now moving over to the women's side, both champions have not clinched yet. Neither champion has clinched yet, and that is because earlier this season, Fayetteville State beat Winston-Salem State 57-72, but they lost recently 50-36. But by virtue of them beating Winston-Salem State more than Winston-Salem State beat Fayetteville State would have the tiebreaker in that situation. And they're only 1 game currently behind Winston-Salem State for the division title. So if Fayetteville State wins and they play Shaw this weekend, and Winston-Salem State loses, and Winston-Salem State plays Livingstone. So Winston-Salem State loses and Fayetteville State wins. Fayetteville State is the number 1 seed in the CIAA South. And obviously, it doesn't matter if Winston-Salem State wins. No matter what, Winston-Salem State will be the CIAA South Division champion. And I can't remember the last time that's happened. They've already set a program record for wins in a season. So this would just be another notch under their belt, winning their first division title in quite a long time. So, and Fayetteville State obviously trying to win an unprecedented third straight CIAA championship. Let's look up, see when the last time that happened. Shaw from 2011 to 2014 was the last time any team three-peated, or 2013. 2013 was the last time anybody three-peated. Shaw eventually went four straight times. So we'll see if Fayetteville State can get the job done in the tournament and potentially, get the first seed before they get there. Meanwhile, in the North, it is the mighty Bowie State Bulldogs. Just, to show you my shirt, for no reason, even though this is football, still, championships, they run in through Bowie State, currently in first place in the division. And this was quite the turnaround for Bowie State. They have won their last 7 to overtake Virginia State for first place in the division. and they can wrap it up with a win this weekend against Lincoln. I believe. No, yeah, Virginia State would have the tiebreaker over them if they lost, and obviously Virginia State won. So they need a win this weekend in order to clinch the CIAA North Division title. And what a remarkable season for Bowie and Virginia State, given the circumstances. Bowie getting off to that slow start, and they have really turned it on at the right time. You just hope, you just hope that it transitions to the tournament, and that this isn't just one of those, end of the season hot streaks that doesn't turn over. Because we've seen teams come into the tournament hot. We've seen teams in general come into the postseason hot and then aren't able to finish the job. So we'll see what Bowie can do with this hot streak that they're on currently. Sade Swan has she recently became the program's leader in wins. So you know that what her pedigree is and her ability to get the most out of this team. And Virginia State in their first season under Malek Green, after Nadine Doman, left for, I believe it was the Morgan State job. So she is doing a remarkable job keeping Virginia State in that championship level, being able to contend for a championship. She has done an incredible job. I'm so looking forward to the tournament. We have a lot of teams that could potentially win it. Lawrence says WSSU and Fayetteville State in the CIAA finals. One team can host the super region. That's a possibility, even if Winston-Salem State or Fayetteville State loses. That's a possibility, even if they lose the tournament. There is a strong possibility we can get 3 CIAA teams in the national championship tournament this year. That is a strong possibility. That is very possible. And of course, if either of those teams win the tournament outright, they could not just host a game in the tournament, but like you said, host a region. So there's a lot to play for on the women's side and the men's side. So we'll see what happens. Tournament gets started this upcoming Tuesday. I'll be in Baltimore all week for the tournament. I can't wait. Really looking forward to it. CIAA tournament, you can't go wrong with it. I've already said enough that the CIAA tournament to me is the best conference tournament in all of basketball. At any level, there is no tournament better than the CIAA tournament. Now, have I experienced all the other tournaments? No, but so this is kind of a biased opinion, but you just can't go wrong with the CIAA tournament. You just can't. You know what I mean? There's entertainment all around for you to experience. So looking forward to it as the regular season comes to an end this weekend, and we'll see who can wrap up their division championships outside of Fayetteville State's women, who already wrapped up the CIAA South, or the women, the men. Excuse me, the men have already wrapped up the CIAA South. Fayetteville State. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely what makes this special. Like imagine a scenario where, and I'm not saying this because they're my alma mater, but imagine a scenario where Bowie wins the CIAA championship, which means they get a bid. You got Winston-Salem State, who could potentially get in as an at-large bid, and Fayetteville State. Or even if Virginia State wins the CIAA tournament, and then you get Fayetteville State and Winston-Salem State in as at-large bids. That is a strong possibility. Now, Virginia State wouldn't host in that scenario, nor Bowie would in that scenario. Chris, we know it's you. Chris, ain't nobody living under a rock. We know about On the Groove Line. Y'all subscribe to On the Groove Line, by the way, for the Donnie Hathaway of HBCU sports. He said the CIAA tournament just looks like a vibe. One day I'll have to get you. Yes, absolutely. You have to get down here. Absolutely. I encourage any HBCU fan in general, no matter what institution you rep, whether you're from an SIAC institution, a MEAC institution, a SWAC institution, an HBCUAC institution, one of our independent friends, it doesn't matter. If you are an HBCU supporter or an HBCU alum in general, get to the CIAA tournament. There is an event for you. If you don't like basketball, cool. We got a whole bunch of other events that go down. That's the thing about the CIAA tournament. It's not just about the basketball. The basketball is great, and that's why I'm there. But there's a lot of things in culture and that you could just in history that you could just learn from being at the CIAA tournament. There's a lot of entertainment to go around. Not to mention that the CIAA tournament serves the community that it's in. The community in Baltimore, they profit from this. Not just in money, of course, that's a big part of it, but in experience. And that's something that everyone should be a part of. So absolutely, you should get down here one day. Everyone who was an HBCU fan should at least experience one CIAA tournament. So yeah, that's that. And it wasn't on the docket, but the HBCU Legacy Bowl is this weekend, and we have quite a few Division II guys who will be participating in the game this year. And I'm just gonna pull up the list of participants so I can accurately give you an account of who to watch in this game, the Division II players to watch. Of course, before I even look, of course, Curtis Allen is someone that I'm looking forward to seeing in this year's HBCU Legacy Bowl. Curtis Allen is somebody that I believe has pro size. He's listed, well, during the season, he was listed at 6'2", 215. I got to believe that he's probably bulked up a little bit more, since then. If he hasn't, then he should eventually. But he's somebody that I believe has pro size. You got to get that strength up a little bit. And he has quickness, but I'm curious about if he's able to adjust to the speed of the NFL. That's something that that's a question that I had for Emmanuel Wilson when he was coming out of Fort Valley State. Would he be able to adjust to the speed and athleticism of the players at the pro level? And he has done that and then some. He's done so to the point where he's pretty much carved out a spot on that Green Bay Packers roster. Now, I'm not sure if he's a restricted free agent this offseason, but he's really found his place in that Green Bay Packers offense, and that's something that I can see for Curtis Allen. It's just a matter of if he can use the tools that he has to translate over into potentially the NFL or maybe even the UFL or the CFL if that's the route that is for him. Also someone that I'm looking forward to watching is DeAndre Proctor from Johnson C. Smith, the receiver from Johnson C. Smith. Started his career at St. Aug, but unfortunately the athletic program went through what it went through, and that precipitated a transfer to Johnson C. Smith, and he was a big part of Johnson C. Smith's championship run. Had a spectacular performance in the CIAA championship game. Would have warranted winning the MVP if it wasn't for Kelvin Durham throwing 5 touchdown passes. So that's always going to be warranting of an MVP selection by Kelvin Durham. But DeAndre Proctor was incredible in that game. He finished with 7 receptions for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. The 146 was a season high for him, by the way, and had a spectacular performance, albeit in a loss in their Division II playoff game against Frostburg State. Had 14 receptions for 139 and a touchdown in that game. So we'll see, him if he can put his skills, like he is a big play receiver. That's one thing about him. He is a big play receiver, but it's a matter of if he can beat guys off the line. That's what I'm curious about with him. You know, how he wins his matchups, his one-on-one matchups. He's listed at 6'3", 210, so he has the height to be at. He has the height for a receiver at the NFL, but it's about his ability to win one-on-one matchups that I'm curious about. He has very good footwork from what I've seen. He has very good footwork, but corners in the NFL nowadays, even the guys coming off the bench, those are some tough competitors to go up against. So why do I keep feeling like I got a burp or something? But yeah, so looking forward to seeing DeAndre Proctor and Carlos Donovan. I apologize if I said his last name wrong, but Carlos Donovan, Dun Dunovan. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, for messing up your name. But the Morehouse defensive back, uh, he is somebody that has really impressed in the HBCU Legacy Bowl practices, and I think he is somebody that has pro potential as well. He's somebody that I can see making a practice squad in the NFL, maybe even a 53-man roster. But at worst, I could see him as a practice squad guy or even as a UFL guy. Like he has that kind of talent. He's is one of the few bright spots for Morehouse in what has been not exactly the best time for them as a football program. You know, he is someone who has a relentless pursuit of the ball, always know where the ball is, and is able to make a play at any given moment. Has great length and uses his athleticism very well. Always finds a way to stick with his receiver to be able to, and gets in there to knock the ball out. So we'll see what he can do in this game, and if he can parlay this into a a, a shot at the NFL or maybe even the UFL. So the HBCU Legacy Bowl going down this weekend. It'll be airing at 4 p.m. Eastern on NFL Network. So please, everyone, tune in for all of our guys. I'm talking about the Division II guys because this is the Division II show. But looking forward to seeing all of our guys in the HBCU Legacy Bowl. Again, it's going down this Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 3 p.m. Central for those of us on Central Time, and for those of us on West Coast Time, 1 p.m. So tune in to NFL Network this Saturday to watch all of our HBCU talent put their skills on display and potentially give themselves a shot at a NFL or UFL contract. So that's going to do it for this edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. Appreciate everyone for tuning in. If you can, once again, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on all of our social platforms. Search up HBCU Sports on all of them, and we will come up. And you can always go to hbcusports.com for all of our latest news in HBCU Sports. Please go to hbcusports/donate. That is huge, guys. We really need help funding this operation. It is not cheap whatsoever. Ken Rashad is doing all he can do to keep us afloat, and it would take a huge burden off of our shoulders if you were willing and able to give anything monetarily to help us with this operation. You guys have been a part of a huge your support. We can't thank you enough for your support. But we can all yeah, it doesn't hurt. It wouldn't hurt if you were willing or able to give anything monetarily to help us fund this operation. So please go to hbcu/donate and give anything you are willing or able to give, and just continue to follow us and tune in to our lives. We can't thank you enough. That's it. We just can't thank you enough. So until next time, I'm Jared Hoffman. See you guys.